everybody to our meeting of March the 6th. And the first thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes of our meeting of February 6th, 2023. Have you checked those, and were there any problems? And
Yeah, we need to amend, let's see which agenda it is. Number 10, I think?
Yes.
oh yes.
Yeah, because I voted nay and it says we voted unanimously, so we need to amend that in the record if we can.
Number 10.
It was the painting of the building.
So page
I
8.
did, yes, I did not catch that. Okay, all right. With the amendment, would someone like to make the motion to approve it with that said amendment?
You have a Chairman, you have a motion, you just need a second.
Oh,
No.
I already have a motion. Where was I? Okay, sorry. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor state aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? All righty. Next thing, we have our regular agenda, and the first thing on it is to consider a grant reimbursement for property located at 310 North Mound Street, HRG number 2023-009.
Yes, Chairman, this is applicant is Lynn Myers for 310 North Mound Street. They were approved to replace the roof at an estimated cost of $16,185. Final project cost was $35,930. You approved funding at 40% of the final project cost not to exceed $6,474. Staff recommends to release grant funds in that amount of $6,474.
All right. And I see Ms. Myers is in the audience. Hello. Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we reimburse, how do I say this? That we reimburse her this, I don't have that figure up
Here
here.
it is,
$6,474 for her re-roofing.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. All in favor state aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? All righty.
The roof looks beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Nice job. Should be.
Okay, now we will consider a COA for property located at 106 North Church Street, COA number 2023-0. I'm reading the wrong thing. No, it is the
No,
same
it's up
thing.
here.
Yeah.
The second.
009, the second one.
Yes, Chairman, this is applicant Alex Shaw for 106 North Church Street. She is requesting approval for signs. She also has on the application requesting to paint, but that's ordinary maintenance. So the only items you're acting on this evening is to consider proposed two signs measuring 16 by 21.5 and 16 by 24, along with the flush-mounted photos as seen in, let me get to it. So those are where the two proposed awning signs would go, along with the proposed flush-mounted signs. There's the awning signs, and then that is the example of the photos that are being proposed or being requested to be placed on the building. The sections of the sign ordinance, the sections of the design guidelines that apply to this is the sign section, chapter 10, and those are included on the second page of your agenda information sheet. Awning signs are one of the types of signs that are recommended, especially for downtown structures, and something that I don't think any of you have ever seen before, but there's also a category called product display signs, and that is essentially what is being requested with the photographs. That just hasn't come up, I think, in my tenure here with the city.
I don't
So
ever
Chairman, I'd be
remember
happy to
seeing
answer any
that.
questions you may have.
All right, do we have some questions?
I just wanted to clarify that the building is painted, correct? The brick is painted?
Yes.
Okay, just double checking. I drove by a week ago, but my brain isn't working, because
Yeah, just
I was
the
getting
bottom,
mixed
yes,
up in between top and
The
bottom.
bottom is painted, yes,
Got
ma'am.
it,
Oh, the awning.
okay.
How are they fixing the photos?
The proposal says with liquid nails is what your
the
agenda
brick?
information sees. Yes, ma'am. that is up for your consideration. And with the applicant talking with Mrs. Sal, she said at a previous location where Ms. Shaw was housed, she had the same thing and was able to peel it off of the brick.
Without damaging the brick?
Without-
Okay. I was making sure I was quoting her correctly, so she shook her head yes.
Okay.
Liquid nail is exactly.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a liquid adhesive.
It's adhesive.
Yeah, it's a putty
Pokey
type
has that,
stuff.
do you
Yeah.
have any experience with that?
Yeah.
It just, yeah, the question is whether you're gonna end up, should it fail, you end up with a whole bunch of goo on there or
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
It'll probably pull the paint off the brick too.
Right.
That's true, it'll pull the paint up with the bricks painted, so that's true, you might
Do
have
the
trouble.
pictures remain the same, or are they subject to change?
That would be a question for Ms. Shaw, who's here in the audience.
I was gonna say,
They would stay the same, yes,
So,
sir.
Okay.
Ms. Shaw says the pictures would stay the same but not be interchangeable.
okay, good, then we're not having multiple applications and removals.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the awning signs are,
Yeah, the awning signs are
No
fine.
No
Very
brainers.
typical.
yes, very
Yes.
typical. Yeah, that's,
Okay. All right. Do we
Okay.
need any more questions or any more information? Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion that we approve COA 2023-009, and that the awning signs and these product placement signs, was that the correct term?
Product display.
Product display signs meet the city ordinances related to sign projects, and with the painting, they're adhering to the paint, not the brick.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I second that motion.
Thank you. All in favor state aye, please. Aye. Opposed? All right. Now, on our agenda, we will review and discuss the different types of historic designations available to Nacogdoches residents.
Read through that, I already looked at it. Front stuff. We're the fastest committee in the West.
I
You know, you
mean,
get your decision,
we're
you get
so
told where you go
efficient.
next,
And we're
and,
quick too.
I mean,
We ask questions too.
yeah, I know.
It's not like we're dumb. It's gonna be, yeah, let's do it.
I think we're just efficient.
We are efficient.
Sorry about that, Chairman. I was just explaining to Ms. Shaw that she still needed a sign permit, so she got approval. She just needs the permit from the inspections office, so I didn't want her to go hang the signs and then
Oh,
get a
right.
ticket for not having a sign permit and say, well, Brian said, so,
Exactly.
sorry for the delay.
No, that's fine.
So this is really just a discussion item. I mean, it could be 30 seconds or 30 minutes. It's really up to the body of you to make that decision. But really, the point of this was to show you the different types of designations that we have here in Nacogdoches. So you're all familiar with historic overlay, and if you're not, you probably shouldn't be sitting here because those are the properties
really should.
those are the properties you're acting on. And so we have the Stern-Huya, Washington Square, Downtown, Zion Hill, and Virginia Avenue historic districts, and that's local districts. Then we also have individually designated properties outside of those districts, which fall under your purview. You oftentimes will hear people say, well, this historic area, that does not mean historic overlay.
Right.
So a property on Pecan Street might be a historic home by the property owner's designation, but that does not mean it is a historic district or have the same criteria. So only properties under a historic overlay district, and that's a zoning classification, require approval to do exterior modifications. There are houses all across the city which had they come before you and said, I would like to be included, it's a slam dunk case, yes, they qualify, they just haven't done so. So if you ever hear those arguments, say, well, there's a difference, so let me just kind of clarify for you. Then there's the National Register and RTHL, a recorded Texas Historic Landmark. Stern-Huya is both local, both state and national. But there are a lot of properties that only have relevance on the state level and don't have relevance on the national level, so therefore they don't qualify. So that's really the difference, is you can't just be a really important property in Nacogdoches and automatically qualify for national. There has to be some tie that says you're significant on the national level as well. Neither one of those provide any real authority, teeth. It's a designation. The SHPO, State Historic,
Hold on. Which one were you saying no teeth?
the state.
The
So-
recorded? They do actually have to go review.
Well, I
Yeah,
literally
I
was
know
about to
it's a lot
say,
of paperwork,
so
believe me.
so
I'm
it says,
inundated.
you're supposed to go before the State Historic Preservation Office, the SHPO.
Yeah.
But literally, if you don't, there's nothing
Yeah.
that can be done, and that was my point,
Yeah.
Dr. Beisel, wasn't that you aren't supposed to, it's that if the Stern Huey House, if we decided to pull the front porch off of that building, the state doesn't do anything. I mean, they just say, shame on you. Whereas, because that property is under historic overlay zoning here locally, if that porch was removed, they could be required to put the porch back.
Right.
And that's by local ordinance, so there is teeth to it. There's an enforcement mechanism with it. And that was the only distinction I was making between a local, a national, and a state. You're supposed to consult. When Mrs. Sal has been doing the Zion Hill restoration, she was supposed to, so she did request the State Historic Preservation Office approve the exterior work. They also approved the interior work. Had she not done that, there's nothing they would have done, but we follow the letter of the law, so we did. In fact, they're the ones that killed the fan, right?
Correct. That is not the thing.
So
They're the ones that did what?
I just making sure before I told you what it was. So you've all been inside that building, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yes? Okay, everyone? No? Okay. All but one person has been inside that building. It is very difficult to get proper airflow because of the design of the building. You have this giant sanctuary, huge ceiling, and then you have these small alcoves on the sides. And so one of the initial, early on proposals was to have a fan, a big fan, kind of like you see it, not quite as big as you see like an expo, but there's like 10 foot wide, giant. The actual name is Big Ass Fan
Yeah,
Company.
Good company. They are,
And
it's
so
called
the,
Big Ass Fans.
the
Good
idea
company.
was, let's put one of those up there to help circulate that air to better. THC said, nope, can't do it. So we removed it. Once again, we could have proceeded, but we were following what the State Historic Preservation Officer said to do. And then the final one is local landmark. If you flip to your packet there on the local landmarks, you will see that we don't have a whole lot of them. It's this page right here, if you're looking for it.
Yeah.
This is date awarded, last one was in
2 years?
2021? That's not
That
right.
was longer than I remember.
Well, I think that, did you verify that date? No. Mrs. Sal saying yes, so
Very early in 2021.
I just don't remember that far back. I've only been around for a few of these, and it's only been when someone who's been sitting on Hlpc says, hey, that cemetery on Park Street, that's really significant. I want to fill out that application and submit it. Several properties around town you've seen, they have a blue, it's an oval. That's the local landmark designation. And we included the application in here for you as well, in case anybody knows of a property that they really want to be included. There's the criteria along with the application right there. So Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm sure Dr. Beisel will help me out if I don't know the answers.
No, I was just gonna throw in, we also have the state antiquities architectural landmarks, which are 2 of them.
It's true, 'cause we
Aldelpha,
have,
Stern, and OUB.
and then Durst is as
Durst
well.
Taylor is.
Durst Taylor is as well.
Yeah,
Better
Durst
talk to
Taylor.
THC, they don't have it on there.
Oh, wow, that's
Because
interesting.
I got the little
They
marker in the
don't.
ground.
It's referred to as an SAL, State Archaeological Landmark.
Well, no, this is architectural, is
Oh,
yours?
I thought you
Yeah,
said
we're doing
archaeological.
No, it is state antiquities landmark, that's architectural.
I was referring to yet another one that we
Yes.
missed, and that is the State Archaeological Landmark, or
That's
SALs.
totally different.
And those are not, if you kind of think globally, it makes sense, those are not advertised.
Right.
You don't want the public to know, hey,
Okay.
this spot right here is really significant,
'cause
there's
we'll-
stuff in the ground.
Civil War stuff.
Yeah,
know,
right.
Right.
So if you are caught digging in an SAL, it's prosecutable by the state attorney general's office.
that's bad.
It's a big deal.
Yes.
There are several SALs that are underwater at Lake Nacogdoches, for example. And so we had to be very careful several years back in 2011 when the water levels were so low. One of them was exposed. So we were having to do constant patrols around that area because most people don't know, oh, hey, here's a bare piece of earth. Let me go see what's out there. And they start picking things up.
But all it takes is one person.
Yeah.
Really, to find it.
So that's why SALs are not advertised.
Guess there's no
You looked like you had a
scuba diving in
question.
that lake, huh?
I do remember when the
I was just
lake
thinking in the
level
dry
was low,
Tortugas,
yeah.
it was like that, because it's filled
Yeah,
with relics.
yeah, lots of relics.
And when you snorkel,
Yeah, or scuba dive.
you see them, and they sit there and watch you to make sure you don't pick up
Yeah.
anything.
Well, I know we have patrols on the
Very
lake,
cool.
yeah. So I have a question. So if there's a building in this town, mid-century, I'm sorry, Perky knows about this, and we're working to get it on the state national registry, do I need to do something with the city on this?
It is up to you.
It should be a local landmark.
I guess so. Okay, I'll do it after I finish getting that other stuff done.
Just add it to the list.
Eating my lunch.
Just add it to the list.
And Perky, I need to talk to you about that too. Yeah, it's like a 2-year endeavor.
The
I
local
have no
landmark is
idea.
not nearly as in-depth as
But
the
the
others.
national one's a killer.
Oh, yes.
I just
And
wanted state. I didn't want to go national, but now it's,
So our 5 local districts are also national register districts. And so
Yes,
that's
they
where we
are.
get when your packets, I'll reference it. This one is listed as contributing to the downtown district. This is in reference to 106 North Church Street. That's where that reference comes from, is when the National Register nomination was made, this property was listed as contributing to the district. And when you go back and look at like the 1986 survey, which was the basis for the 1990 National Register nomination for like Zion Hill, some of those buildings are listed as in poor shape, but they're not today. So, I mean, that's a snapshot from 1986 to 1990. It also lists buildings that don't exist today because they've burned or fallen down or been demolished since then. So, any other questions?
Yeah, and I just can't remember, are the National Register properties the exact same as the overlay or not? I didn't think they were exactly the same. All those listed under the district, or aren't they in
the
the
Zion-
historic zoning?
Except for downtown.
Okay.
So when downtown, let me make sure I got all this right, there was a fire district, a Main Street district, a National Register district, and an overlay district. Okay, so there were four different boundaries in downtown, and none of the lines matched. And so, and I don't remember what year this was, but it's been 8+ years ago. Staff said, this is really confusing because every time I talk to a downtown business owner, they say, well, hey, I'm in this. Well, no, you're not in that one, but you're in these 3, but not in this one. And so we went to council and made a presentation to make the boundaries all be the same. And those boundaries we were proposing were the National Register because we can't change those. The National Register boundary is what it is. But council had the authority to move fire districts, downtown districts, overlay districts. Council at the time said, yes, we're willing to do that, but if you as the property owner say, I've been in it for 20 years, but I don't want in it now, cut me out. So then her property would be cut out. So that's where it's not exact for downtown, but it's pretty darn close.
I couldn't remember, okay.
So there are some properties that are on the National Register that are not under local for the downtown, but all the rest match the boundaries.
So, so people come and ask questions because they are maybe interested in their properties and doing like Judy's doing. Is there an advantage to us, to the city, if more people go to that trouble and get their
Depends on
properties
which one.
designated?
If you're looking at the local level,
Any of these levels, I mean,
Me
is that something
being
we should talk to
historic
people about?
preservation
Or
officer, I would
encourage
say
them to-
yes.
Yeah,
Because then you ensure to the best of our abilities that the property stays intact.
It's a layer of protection.
and people don't know about it actually, so this is good, thank you for.
So another thing to remember is when, and I know all of you have heard it thousands of times, I can't believe City of Nacogdoches let
Oh,
all those
yes.
houses on North Street go away.
Let all those get torn down.
Well, that was not, none of them were under historic overlay. That is the only mechanism that a municipality has to protect the architecture of a building. Well, yes, those buildings are all gone, but we also have 5 districts that are not.
Right.
So we have not destroyed all of the history in Nacogdoches.
Right.
We have not been able to protect all of it, but we've been able to protect 5.
How do we extend it? Is that possible to extend the overlay? I mean, we did have one person come in, and he was close to the Virginia district that put his.
Ordinance does not allow staff to request those, but a property owner can.
No, clearly
So
the
a property owner
but it
is
could be.
more than willing to come up and request, yes.
Oh, good, okay.
We can also, something that Dr. Beisel and I tried and will retry again next year, but you have to start with the historic sites survey.
Yes.
So once you do a survey of a neighborhood, then you kind of determine what the boundaries of the historic significance are. Because something on North Street was a historic area. But if you went and did a survey of today, there's nothing really to preserve there, right? So, but if you go one block over, maybe there is. So that's why you do the survey of that larger area, and then you kind of define where it is. And so the Shawnee district is something that I think everybody would agree is a extremely historic area. It doesn't have any protection. And so the first step is to fund a historic site survey, and then you start that process. So hopefully next year we will be funded to do a survey of the Shawnee area.
It's great.
And then you get into really sticky topics, because then you have a council saying, hey, property owners, we want to put all of you in under, and most councils are going to say, oh, wait, Mr. Mall, you went out? Yes, please, go ahead. Because that,
Yeah.
it's kind of overpowering for a city council to come in and do that. So that's why I say it's kind of touchy at that point.
Feels like big government.
But in essence, I mean, because I had this discussion with somebody when I first moved here about a house on Virginia. We have no paint palette that we go by. You get a grant if you want to re-roof. I don't see a downside. Am I missing something?
You are not. It is a misconception that actually, this very timely, you did the survey or the stats last week. So Mrs. Sal gave me the stats last week, and it is 96% of all requests have been approved since this process started in 1980.
I believe it. I just,
It is other cities where historic preservation gets a bad rap. It's not us here.
No.
well, it wasn't in San Antonio either.
There are, what sticks in people's minds are the contentious cases. Well, I mean, when was the last one any of you can remember that was a big to-do in historic preservation? I know which one it was, but
I do too.
I
What
don't
was it?
know how big a deal.
Joe's house.
right. And what year was that?
I don't know what that
Oh,
was.
gosh.
It's been so long we can't remember,
Yeah,
right?
6 years ago?
I have no clue.
It was more than
Her
that.
house.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Her house.
Her house.
But it
Your
wasn't
house.
hers. It wasn't hers.
She was not the owner of the house at the time. But my point is not to rehash that case, but
Right,
that was the last
was a
one we
long
had,
time
and
ago.
that's been
Yeah.
a long time ago.
Yeah.
yeah.
And before that, it was Blanken Company building,
Right, right.
which was before I got here in
Yeah.
'03.
Which
I mean,
got torn down.
so going back in the last 20 years, we've had 2.
Yeah.
And that's what sticks in people's mind is, you told me I couldn't do that to my house. Well, okay, twice in 20 years? I mean,
That's a pretty good record. The group of architects that were here, when I told them about our grants, they were like blown away by that. They had never heard of such a thing. So I thought that was such a great example to
a lot of cities are jealous of the fact that we can do that.
Yeah, it's a great city, that's all I'm saying.
Now, how could we get, tax breaks on all older houses?
Well, because we don't have state income tax.
Oh,
But on the
okay.
national level, you do.
It was just a thought.
And you can get state and federal by redoing a home. It's not, you apply to get it for your house. So, I mean, not for a home, but for a business, Fredonia Hotel, for instance.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, you have to meet very strict criteria, and that, when we're talking about the SHPO is involved in that, and the architectural division is here and reviewing every single item. The CBH insurance building, the owners, when it was going from what it was to what it is today, were very interested in state tax abatements. And there was one thing that killed it, and that was, if you all remember, there was a giant hole in the floor that you used the stairs to go to the second floor. Well, that was gonna be a bedroom, I mean, not bedroom, living quarters up there, and they said, well, we need to close this off, and they said, if you close this off, you don't get any.
Yeah.
Because you really have to maintain that sense of space. The old main theater was very interested in doing it, but they wanted to put in, which is what they did, they wanted to put in apartments.
Right.
Well, when you walked into that theater, having a little corridor really doesn't give you the sense of space that it was a theater. So it was out. So there are avenues for tax relief,
Income producing property.
but
Oh,
it's
okay.
not for your residents.
Can I ask a question? You gave the 96% of all requests approved. All requests have been approved since 1980. Was that first round, or are there more that were approved when they came back?
So we only did, yes, and that percentage goes up
Okay.
when you, and we didn't get to that detail of it yet because Mrs. Sal just wrapped that up on Friday morning. And so I looked it over. Most of the ones that were denied modified the request, came back and were approved. There are very few that are outright no. Only a handful, and I can't think offhand to give you the right number, only a handful have been appealed to council without being modified and approved by you. One of those was Commercial Bank years ago wanted a big giant clock, projecting clock sticking out from their building. HLPC, I wasn't the person in charge at the time, but HLPC said no and gave some guidance, which is in your purview. You know, we're gonna deny this request based on these things, but here are some feedback. Commercial Bank at the time said, no, we don't care, we don't wanna modify it, this is what we want. They came to council said, we support HLPC, no. So most cases, using that as an example, the applicant would go and modify their request, come back, you approve it, it never goes to council. So we count those as two separate cases,
Right.
but it's the same thing.
Yeah, but that's a good talking point. 96% first shot.
That is
and
good.
more second
Yeah.
shot.
I didn't even realize it was that high.
My guess was that it was 98, I was wrong. So any other questions about local or state or national?
Interesting.
On this part where review of proposed changes, have we got to that yet? The recorded Texas history landmarks?
What about it? Kind of tell me what you're
I'm just
asking.
curious, is this something that we're just reading and?
Oh, this is just for your information.
Yeah.
So we do, I get requests from the state for comment on things. It doesn't come to HLPC for comment. When there was a big push to have cell phone towers put up everywhere, they're required to get SHPO approval, which then, of course, the state has no idea what impact it is here locally, so then they send us a letter. Well, none of those towers were ever in danger or close to endangering any of our overlay stuff. So we just send back a letter of no. So that's the kind of thing that we get. All right, Chairman, I guess
Good
that's
information.
all the
Thank
questions.
you.
I think we have done our due, and the meeting is adjourned.